welcome to the NEPA Scene Podcast. We're coming to you live from Cole Creative in downtown Wilkes-Barre. I'm Rich Howells. I'm the founder and editor of NEPA Scene.
And I'm Brittany Boot. I'm the owner of Boot Photography Studio.
And I thought we were going to get the band back together tonight, but that didn't happen. John was supposed to be able to make it at the last minute. His newborn boy got a little fussy, so we're going to let him slide on that one. We better see him next week. We have an interesting discussion next week, but we'll talk about that later. Tonight, we're here with Hazleton punk rock musician, animator, and comic creator Ted Hazard of Hazard Studios. So we're going to talk about his ongoing comic and animated series Krust Toons, his music videos for bands like Condition Oakland, Azwel, the Twindows, so many other bands. His upcoming show at the Hazleton Art League with TreadWater, Markus A.D, Ace and the Kings, It Never Fails, and Vanvancar. It's a clever name. Yeah. And more. So please join the conversation. We would love to hear from you. If any of you are interested in animation, if you like punk rock music, any of that kind of stuff, we would love to get your questions and comments. Just leave them down there below. We will get to those at some point in the show. Just whenever something pops in your head, just leave it down there in the comments. But before we get to the interview, we have some beers to introduce from Beer Boys in Wilkes-Barre. Now, they have 72 beers on tap. They have at least 24 from Pennsylvania breweries, including Breaker Brewing, which is local right here in the Wilkes-Barre area. So we have a great echo going on here. That's really that's totally helping the flow of the show.
I don't realize how loud it was.
Thank you though. If you can't hear, you can also bitch at us in the comments as well. We've had that happen a few times. I think we're pretty good tonight though. If I can hear me, you can certainly hear me. But we have the Blackberry Jalapeno Minefire, which I personally do not recommend. But if you're one of those insane people that like peppers in your beer, then I'm sure you're going to love this. I personally don't, but knock yourself out. We also have the 5 Whistle Wheat. That sounds pretty good. I don't think we've had that one on the show before. And the Belsnickler Ale, which...
I like the sound of that one.
Yeah, okay. I don't know what that is. So which one should we start with?
The Whistle Wheat.
The Whistle Wheat? Okay.
Sounds like a smooth one to start off with.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Now, is anybody else? Are you
I'll have a little bit.
You having a little bit?
And I'll bring some to the boys. Is that the only cups we have?
No, there's more cups in there. They can pour themselves.
Here, I'll bring that over.
Okay. Well, if you're only going to have a little bit, then I poured more generously for you there. So we also want to give a shout out to the V Spot, which is our newest sponsor. Now, they have one of the biggest, most popular bars in northeastern Pennsylvania, so they certainly don't need an introduction from me. But I was there for the Jackson V benefit on Sunday. It was a ton of fun. I don't know if you guys saw our live stream at all. We live streamed a couple of the bands that were playing there, including Nowhere Slow, who we had on the show a couple of weeks ago. That was a fun one as well. So if you want to catch up on past episodes, they're all on nepascene.com right now, just under the podcast tab at the top. Now this week at the V Spot, they have Jonathan Dressler on Thursday, Small Town Titans on Friday, and the recently reunited Grace's Downfall on Saturday, and karaoke with DJ Huff on Sunday. We also want to shout out to one of our other sponsors, The Keys in downtown Scranton. Their open mic is on Thursday. Peculiar Culinary Company will be there on Friday. They might as well just open up their shop there at this point. I mean, they've been there every Friday for the past how many months at this point. But it's worth checking out. It's worth going down for. They've sold out a bunch of times. Really, really good food there. It's also First Friday, so there's going to be an art show there on Friday. And then later that night is music by Static in the Attic. We also want to plug, even though they took all our parking tonight and we were driving around like mad trying to find a parking spot for blocks ahead, but that shows you how popular shows at the Kirby Center are. We want to plug up a coming show at the Kirby Center this Friday. Comedian Eddie B. from Texas is coming this Friday, February 2nd, on his Teachers Only tour, which was with the recently announced layoffs from the Scranton School District. Everybody obviously needs to let off some steam from that awful situation. So this guy is definitely the guy to do that. He was a middle school teacher for a number of years before he became a stand-up comedian. So he started basing his comedy around teaching and the struggles of being a teacher and dealing with kids and their parents who are probably worse. So he started a video series called What Teachers Really Say, which you can find on YouTube. It's very funny. Made up of all the things that teachers wish they could say, but they can't. So if you or your friends or your family members are teachers, or your friends are teachers, or if you just deal with kids on a regular basis, you're definitely going to enjoy this show. He's a very funny guy. Hopefully we'll have an interview with him either tomorrow or early Friday on the website. But go check out his stuff. It's very funny. It's Friday, February 2nd at 8 p.m. Tickets are $35, $45, and $65, depending on where you want to sit. Whew. Okay, so I think we got through all that.
Last week I was just like,
Yeah, you did good with that. You did good with that.
I was like, kind of get through everything.
Did you guys have fun with Tom?
We did. Oh yeah, we did. I thought Tom was a great guest
Yeah.
because he's so animated. And
Oh yeah, he's
interesting
definitely very.
and has so many stories.
He's a very passionate guy.
Yeah.
Loves what he does and that kind of thing.
Yeah, we had fun.
All right, so Ted, now the first thing I wanted to talk about is, a lot of your work, your animated work and everything, your comics and stuff are music based in some form. You're also a musician. So where did it start? Was it in being a musician and working to the other stuff, or vice versa?
Well, it's kind of strange. I've been drawing all my life since I was like 3 years old, but we're not going to go back that far because that's going to take forever. I actually started drawing comics before I got into the local music scene when I was about 15, 16. I was really into like a lot of 90s animation, Jhonen Vasquez, just like a lot of stuff you'd see just on like, any old television station in like the early 2000s, early 90s.
Yeah.
And I just, I wasn't paying attention in class, obviously. I mean, I was taking applied biochemistry. So I just would draw little comics in my composition book. And then one day my friend's like, hey, why don't you Xerox them, staple them together and sell them? So started doing that. That's how I got into selling comics. And the comics actually got me into going to shows. I sat next to this kid named Tyler. We'd be in a band at some point. But he'd always give me a flyer for a show and be like, hey, you're going to go to this weekend? And I was just like, I'll try to make it out. And this went on for like a year. And I go, I'll try to make it out. And he's like, you say that every single week and you never go. When are you going to go? I'm like, I just told him, I don't see any interest in going. He's like, well, what if I give you a table to sell your comics at? All right, I'll go. And I think I was at my table for about 15 minutes, and the rest of the show I was just watching the bands and, getting in the pit and stuff. And that night, that really got me into the local music scene of Hazleton, Pennsylvania. All those old bands like No Service Project and Team Radar. And eventually I stopped working on the comics as much and started focusing more on the music. And it kind of flip-flopped back and forth until a couple years ago. I really wasn't doing much with the comics. I think I just released a graphic novel called Life is Pain. And one day I was bored out of my mind and I drew a comic about my friends in Condition Oakland. But at the time they were my friends. I was not in the band at that point. About a record label that Tyler runs called Guts Crew Records. So I drew a little comic about that. Showed it to my couple friends, and they were like, this is good. You should put this on the internet. So I put the first one on the internet, and I think I had said, I'm going to draw one of these a week, turn into one of them a day. So since 2013, I've been mostly every day, I'm sure I missed a couple days, putting out Krust Toons, which is what Guts Crew Records evolved into. So And eventually Krust Toons brought on the animation, but that's probably a different subject.
So how many of those stories that are in the comics are based on real stories or experiences that you've had or maybe somebody else has had?
Quite a lot. Well, right now, what I'm putting out in the comic, it kind of took on a life of its own. Like, it started generating its own stories. But a lot of the jokes you'll see on the comics in, like, the deli or, you know, just some that are, like, day-to-day or even in the cartoon itself are, a lot of them are based off of things that have happened to me personally as a musician, or I've seen happen to people I know, or I've just, like, witnessed at a show or something. Like, the one episode of Krust Toons, I think it's called, I don't even remember the names of my own episodes. It's so weird. Whatever episode it was that they got stuck on the interstate, I think it's like season 2, that actually happened to me. I was driving home from Williamsport one night, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go home early because, you know, I got work early, and I ended up being stuck in a traffic jam at 3 in the morning on Interstate 80, having to go to the bathroom. So that's where that episode came from. But yeah, like, there's tons of stuff that have happened to me. Like, there's another episode, Friendly Hostility. That's some kind of based on something that has happened, but some things were changed not to offend people.
Yeah, there's always. Do you have to deal with that a lot in terms of if you're basing it on people? You know, do you feel like?
Well, see, that why a lot of people give me flack because Guts Crew Records, when Krust Toons was Guts Crew Records, it was based on my friends who were in bands. Okay. And when I started making it more or less about made-up characters, people got upset. They're like, why aren't you putting us in your comics anymore? And I had to explain to them, I can't keep going like this with people I know because I'm going to piss somebody off.
Right. Well, yeah, you're going to put, you know, you're having to essentially put words in their mouth.
Pretty much.
So sooner or later.
What's the saying? If you're not pissing people off, you're not doing it right.
So it'd be easier if you just have, you know, made-up characters that aren't real people doing whatever you want with them than having real people and running their name through the mud. That's kind of, it's not something you want to do. It's rather just make up your own stories, you know, your own people.
So how did that develop from there into Hazard Studios, or did that come from somewhere else?
Hazard Studios, I don't necessarily remember where the name Hazard Studios came from. I used to do my comics under the moniker of SMP Comics, which I don't even remember what it used to stand for. But a friend kind of took that name and turned it into his own thing, and at that point I was like, I didn't want it to have the same name as that, so I think I kind of just took Hazard Studios when they was like, oh, we're just going to put this on there, and I think I might have slapped it on the back of Captain Anarchy, and the next couple graphic novels I did. And then when I started doing videos for people and started getting a commercial work, I just started using that name because I figured it's there. People know what it is, so why not just use Hazard Studios, and kind of blossomed into what it is today.
So for those who aren't familiar, tell people what you do with Hazard Studios. What are the kind of projects that you put out on a regular basis? Well,
right now, Hazard Studios, I tell people it's mostly a video production / animation studio. We do music videos for bands. We do some commercial work for some businesses. And we do animation, a lot of animated music videos right now, but we do have our own animated series, like Krust Toons, like we mentioned before, Wine and Dine, which is based on the restaurant industry. And we're working on some other projects too that are going to be, you know, pretty cool. We released some short films. We released Life is Pain in 2016. That was in a couple film festivals. We're working on more now, but it's like with the volume of music video work that's coming in, it's kind of impossible. Like, I can't, if I have something that's bigger than one of my little pet projects that I want to just do in my spare time, I have to take that. I can't drop everything. I can't, like, drop doing the music video for King Kong Hates the Wolfman because I want to get season 4 of Krust Toons out, because that's kind of like a conflict, not really a conflict of interest, just like I kind of feel like I have to do it, you know.
Right.
because it's like season 4. It's always going to be there. Like I know what I want to do with it, where I want to go with it. It's just right now I feel like the music videos, they're kind of more important to get done.
Now, how is the story of Krust Toons developed from the beginning till now? Like, what has gone on from season to season?
Oh well, like the actual seasons of the cartoon. See, that's a weird. Nobody really asked me that before, because the comic, it kind of goes in like its own little storyline, and sometimes the storyline of the comic doesn't necessarily affect that of the cartoon, but if there's long gaps between seasons, like between season 2 and season 3, whatever is going on in the comic usually affects the next season of Krust Toons. Like right now in whatever I'm working on comic-wise, Krusty Keenan and his girlfriend, Straight Edge Susie, they left town pretty much. Like they don't want to. They got kicked out of the house they were living in, and now they're living in the van. So that's probably going to affect season 4 in some way. But necessarily, like storyline-wise, like the cartoon itself, it's stuck in its own little bubble. But like I said, if something happens like major in the comic, like a couple breaks up, or somebody gets a new job or something, or a band breaks up and a new band started, that's going to happen in season 4. Pretty much just like if you'd like watch any television show or cartoon based on your favorite comic book, something like that happens, they're obviously going to bring a note of it to the show,
Right.
Or adapt it somehow.
Well, the thing that I like about the comic, having seen it pop up a few times over the years online in various forums, and various social media and stuff like that, is you can just read it and enjoy that comic without having to know all the context too.
Right.
It's kind of like like your Sunday strips or your newspaper strips. On a daily basis, you can just open it up. You don't have to know what Beetle Bailey's been up to get the joke that's going on, or there's still a punchline at the end.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse to me. I will go on the record and say this, and I know it's very controversial, but fuck Prince Valiant, okay? Fuck comics like Prince Valiant. I don't like that shit, because you'd have to read every single one to get what's going on, and there's no big punch to it. There'll be entire comics you can collect them all for months, and nothing will actually happen for months on end till you get to maybe one battle. Hate that shit. What I like I like being able to pick it up at any time and enjoy the joke, and then move on. I think that's what comic strips should be. This whole ongoing kind of stuff. And then a lot of times too, if you get like something like Dick Tracy or something like that, because I'm the kind of person that reads that stuff. They'll spend the first 2 or 3 panels telling you what happened already if you didn't read it the day before they can get to what happened that day. And that annoys me too.
And then like the whole comic's just the last 2 panels, and that's it.
Exactly.
But then the next comic will be 3 panels explaining what happened in that one panel.
Right.
See, that's another thing with the show. I've toyed around, like, you've obviously seen BoJack Horseman. Have you seen it? Mm-hmm. I've toyed around with the idea on my shows of doing like that ongoing storyline, like story arc in a season. And like I tried to do it a million times, but in Krust Toons, I feel like if I did that, it would ruin the show. Because if you sit down, you watch an episode, there's something that happens at the beginning, and then there's a resolution. I guess that's a real weak term of saying what it is.
Right.
Because usually it's just something bad happens to the band at the end.
Yeah.
It's all self-contained, and I feel like anybody could just watch that and be like, oh, I enjoyed that. I don't have to know that Krusty Keenan is homeless to understand any of these jokes.
Right.
You just have to understand that he's kind of pathetic.
So, by the way, we should somebody grab this jalapeno beer and get it out of my face. It affects
Gerard,
me.
I feel like this one has your name on it.
That one has Gerard's name all over it. So you
For some reason, I feel like if it was blueberry jalapeno, I'd like it. But it's blackberry.
So how many years have you been doing this now? Like looking back on it.
Comic wise, I've been working on Krust Toons for about 5 years now. I think it'll be about 5-6 years, probably 5 years in May or April. I started it in April in 2013. But the animation stuff I've been working on for about 3 years. And that's all kind of self-taught. Didn't really go to school for that or anything. And I just kind of taught myself as I went.
Now, are you doing all the voices for that too?
I
or-
do a lot of the voices, but I do not do all the voices.
Okay.
Let's see if I can name off my head what characters I do on Krust Toons. Let's see. Krusty Keenan, Hawk, Punk Rock Friend number 3. I do the voice of Robber. That's a little guy with the pink mask that breaks into the convenience store sometimes. Convenience store guy, Hardcore Polar Bear. Did I mention him? No, I do Hardcore Polar Bear. I used to do Dooku, but now my friend Marcelino Diaz does the voice of Dooku. Who else do I do? There's tons. I do random little voices on the show too. Like if there's like a character where it's like, oh, he needs to sound like a 90s Saturday morning cartoon villain like the Shredder. I'll do it because I can do it. Oh, we need like a nerdy Jewish sounding person. I can do that just without even trying. So I do a lot of the voices on the show. And then we have other people like Caitlin Adams. She's used to be a theater actress. She's a graduate of King's College. She does a lot of the female voices on the show. Mm-hmm. She does Sheila the Desolate One. She now does Straight Edge Susie. Mm-hmm. She does Tamina, a.k.a. the girl from the Punk House. Zach Hauser, who's actually in Vanvancar. He does Aaron the Anarchist, Ditchy Ditch. He does Officer Sturgeon. That's another character I do. I do the voice of, I think it's Lieutenant Rollins, whatever, Sergeant Rollins, Officer Rollins, whatever. The other cop, the one that's not Sturgeon. And there's a lot of other people do voices. I just, if I'm looking for someone to voice something and I think they can do it, I'll normally think of someone's voice in my head and be like, this person would be a really good voice for this person. But they'll come in and they'll be like trying like, oh, well, can I do like a goofy voice? I'm like, no, you do your voice. And then if I have another character that I want you to do and I think you could do a cool goofy voice for it, then you could do that voice. So that's kind of how it goes. Tyler Troutman in Condition Oakland, he does the voice of D, the singer-songwriter guy. His girlfriend, Allison Storm, does the voice of Singer Girl Sam on the show. And this list goes on and on and on. I'm sure
I love all the names. I love the character names.
Yeah, they're just a lot of times like I'll think of a character's name and then I'll think of what it's going to encompass. I'm like,
Yeah.
We have this newer character I'm working on. His name is Edgy Reggie. Edgy Reggie's whole thing is he's just edgy. Like I think the first comic I did with him, Punk Rock Friend number 3 is complaining about the band he's in, and Edgy Reggie's like, I don't see why you're in a band. It's pointless. And he just says, wow, you're edgy. He's just like, yeah, I'm Edgy Reggie. But Edgy Reggie's whole thing is he's not in a band. He doesn't appreciate PC culture. He just wants to work at his gas station job for the rest of his life and not have to deal with any kind of alternative culture whatsoever.
So he's like every shit commenter on the internet.
Pretty much. He's basically an internet troll. But he's not. See, that would have been funny. I mean, I already have a character who basically is an internet troll in Captain Dislike. I also do his voice.
Dislike.
Captain Dislike, that is the hardest voice I've ever had to do. And all it really is just a really high-pitched, nerdy voice. But every time I do it, I get a headache. There's other villains on the show I do, too. Michael Bay's on the show. I do his voice. And I just voice him like Dr. Robotnik from Sonic the Hedgehog. And yeah, there's like tons of other voices. Corey Kesselring from Rochester, New York. We the band Condition Oakland. We travel up to Rochester a lot. We have a lot of friends up there. So a lot of people from that scene, that punk rock scene, they do voices on the show. Like Adam Kramer, he's in TreadWater. He does the voice of Punk Dad, who's just an old punk guy who always has a beer in his hand for some reason. Corey Kesselring does a lot of voices. He's a huge fan of 90s animation, so when he saw I did a cartoon, he's like, yo, can I do some voices? 3 years later, I'm like, fine, you can do voices. So I was just giving him random characters. I'm like, here, do the voice of the music store owner, Marshall, and he gave me old Yiddish guy. It's like, all right, that works. He does the voice of Pumpkinhead the little guy wearing the "Not My President" T-shirt, who's always trying to do stuff with the band, but the band wants nothing to do with him. He's basically like the D from Always Sunny of their group. Like they never want anything to do with him, but he's always trying to stick his nose into their whatever they're doing. He also does the voice of Benny the Pancake, which basically is the Denny's Pancake, but a parody.
It reminds me a bit of like SLC Punk and that type of stuff, where it's really talking about the conventions of the scene and certain people that you see at shows all the time, but maybe have never quite placed exactly like who they are. You seem to be able to nail down certain characteristics about those people that you see on a regular basis.
That's pretty much like a lot of the, like I said, like naming a character is usually where it starts, but really where it starts is finding one of those archetypes, or like kind of, I hate to use the word stereotype because it's, right. But those scene stereotypes. Like I had a character, what was his name? See, I have so many characters, I barely even know any of them. Christian Mingle. He's actually based on my friend Timmy Mangle, who lives in Oregon right now. But he was the guy who dressed super nice and had the suitcase drum set with the acoustic guitar and played the shows. And I like, he kept bugging me. He's like, you need to have like a folk music guy. And I'm like, well, I got Ditchy Ditch. He's the folk punk guy. And he's like, no, you need like a folk music guy. So I kind of came up with that character, and I had another name for him. It was like folk head Phil or something dumb like that. And then somebody had made a joke. I think actually Danny Lentez from Vanvancar he said to me, he's like, hey, to me and Tyler, he's like, hey, where did you guys meet? Christian Mingle? Immediately my head pops up, have a comic about Krusty, Keenan, and Hawk, and they're standing there, and someone asks them, hey, how did you guys meet? Christian Mingle. And then this character that looks like my friend Timmy Mangle walks in, he's like, hey, have you met my friend Hawk? His name's Christian Mingle. That's where his name came from. But he's kind of like just like that archetype. He's kind of two different ones, where it's like he's your generic folk music guy who always wants to play banjo with your band, even though you're in a death metal band. But he's also the vape guy who's always outside with the vape pen, where he's like, hey, you vape bro? Which is perfect for him. And a lot of these, I'm sure fans of the show have noticed, sound bites come back in other episodes of the show, because we'll have recording sessions, and I'll just get tons of audio from these people. Like my actors, they come in and they do like maybe like 2 or 3 episodes worth of lines. So I can just work on that for 6 to 7 months, and I don't have to come back until we're doing another episode. And I'm like, all right, you need to come because we're doing a whole different story, and I can't just use all these other lines. But yeah, pretty much that. He moved to Oregon, but his "Do You Vape Bro?" That's probably just gonna keep playing for seasons to come. Another guy, a rapper from Trenton, New Jersey, Raymond Strife. He does the voice of MC Franco. We actually got that voice at Yardstock 3 because he came to play, and I was like, "You want to be on the show?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "All right, here." Pointed my phone at him. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Just say this line into my phone, and you can be on the show." So every episode of season 3, he just says, "Damn, son," to whatever's going on in each episode. It's like a running joke. But yeah, that's where we get a lot of our voices from.
Now, what do you use to animate this stuff? Specific programs? Or?
I actually mostly do it traditionally. It's a mixture of traditional, stop motion, and digital animation. I'll draw the characters, everything that they're ever going to move on their body.
Like physically on paper?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, physically on paper. Load it into the computer, basically like South Park did. Put it in the computer. I have this huge database of just all sorts of body parts and, character heads and little character models that I just manipulate myself digitally and put them all together. I edit a lot of my stuff with Sony Movie Studio and various other programs. I used to use Photoshop. I use GIMP now because I lost my product key for Photoshop, and now I just like GIMP, so I'm just gonna keep using GIMP. And I actually use a lot of Microsoft Office Publisher to create some of the backgrounds and some of the objects they use. So like you'll see like a poorly drawn character moving around, but he's holding a really nice looking coffee cup or something like that. That's why it's that way, because I was like, I don't feel like drawing a coffee cup. I'll just make it in the computer.
Right.
Plus, another thing like that is like with cars. I can't draw cars to save my life. Terrible at drawing cars. So I'll just make the car in there and, just put it in. But like a lot of stuff I use on the shows and the music videos and anything I animate. A lot of it has been there for a long time. So if you see something pop up, like if you see a car in an episode of Simon and Rusty pop up in like my next music video for Azwel, it's probably because it is the same car.
Now, do you, what kind of feedback do you get from people, and does that base, does that influence anything that you do?
Yes.
Going forward.
Thankfully now I get a lot of positive feedback. When I first started doing animation, I was not good. If you look back on my YouTube channel, the first 22 shorts of Krust Toons look just not good. Like, instead of having the 8 or 9 different mouth movements, they have like 2. It's like there's a mouth and then like another mouth going like this. That's it. And they like won't move at all. Now everything's like really like vivid and crisp and clear and clean.
Well, if you're doing anything even remotely wrong, the internet will let you know.
Oh yeah, that's actually where Captain Dislike came from. I'm pretty sure it was season 1. I had somebody now who does this makes up a fake YouTube account to purposely go on one of your YouTube channels and says I don't even remember what they said was, but it was something like along the lines of, "This is the worst animation ever seen in my life, and you should feel ashamed of yourself." That
It's like so harsh.
Right?
That
always so
struck a
brutal.
nerve with me to the point where I screenshotted the comment and put it on the cover of one of my albums, one of my solo albums. And to this day, people see it and they're like, "This is the greatest album art of all time I've ever seen." But that comment, I'm pretty sure I had a whole other episode planned out where I was like, "Oh yeah," we had the voices recorded and everything. I'm like, we're gonna do this episode about Harper Polar Bear going to therapy. And we ended up where I was like, nope, we're going to do an episode about a guy that lives in his basement and is trying to destroy the world of Krust Toons. So that's where Captain Dislike came from, one of my favorite characters on the show.
So it did result in something
Yeah.
positive.
You know what? He's actually one of everybody. Like, I get a lot of feedback from fans, like to say, "Oh, you like Captain Dislike." Like when I brought him back at the end of season 3, they were like, "Yes, finally!" Like I got a lot of flack from season 2 because they're like, "Yeah, it got a lot better, but why are you doing a villain of the week thing? Like this isn't the Ninja Turtles. It's a show about the music scene.
Yeah.
It's like we don't need to see." Krusty Hawk and Number 3 saved the world from an Independence Day spaceship piloted by Michael Bay. We don't need to see that. We want to see them go to a show and see the steps are so tall and they have to carry all of their amps up it and they keep falling down. That's what we want to see.
Yeah, okay.
So, you learn from your mistakes.
Sure.
Yeah.
And if you don't, Captain Dislike will let you know.
He'll let you know.
Yeah.
We're planning for season 4. At the end of season 3, this is another like one of the things I don't do, like the ongoing storyline. The end of season 3, he got arrested. So in season 4, that we're gonna acknowledge that he's gonna be in jail for maybe like an episode or 2, and we're gonna get him out of there somehow, and he's gonna extract his revenge on the Krust crew somehow using the internet, or maybe he'll actually get out of his mom's basement for once.
Now, as a musician, do you end up falling into some of those archetypes or making some of those same?
I'm pretty sure I have an OkCupid account, by the way, if anybody wants to go check that out. I'm pretty sure in my About Me, I call myself a feeble douchebag hipster punk rock elitist, which is,
I could see that working.
yeah, well, that's pretty much how I describe myself to people. I'm a pessimist. I'm not my biggest fan. It's like if I see like a video I did, like Pulp for instance, and this is like really funny. That video took me 3 months to do. And that was 3 months of waking up early, going to my day job, coming home and working on this animation till 1 a.m. Weeks of that. And before I'm done with a video, I render it about 19 times. Because I always find like tiny little mistakes. Like I'll be like, oh, that looks great. Wait, there's a tiny little speck there. We got to get rid of it. There was, at the end of Pulp, like I had it all done. And like they were set to release it on Halloween, and it was like a week before Halloween. And I'm watching the video again, and I'm like, wait a minute, that little piece of the billboard is sticking out. That's not possible in physics. I need to fix that. So I went to Astrid Grimm, the singer of the Twindows, and I said, I need to re-render the video. You didn't schedule it to get uploaded yet, did you? And she just yelled at me. She's like, yes, we did. It's fine. Don't fix it. It's fine the way it is.
You're gonna get like George Lucas and want
Very
to
much,
upload
yeah.
it and then do a special edition of it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that the special edition of Pulp is coming, where Trump is actually an actual orange instead of just like a 3D orange instead of a little cartoon. And there's like, I don't know, we'll have like more airplanes and stuff, or I don't know, we'll do something with it. But yeah, see, I do fall into that. Nobody's innocent of being, an archetype or a stereotype. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I mean, that's bad to say, but I mean, like, we all have our flaws. That wouldn't make us who we were.
Well, from your standpoint as an animator and everything, are you going into these videos saying, I have an idea of what to do with this song, or are they telling you this is what I want to see, and you're just kind of trying to create around that, or is it kind of a little in the middle?
It's a little. It always changes. It's always different. Like with Pulp, Astor had kind of like, she didn't really have an idea of what she wanted to do. She just kind of went to me one day and was like, "Hey, I want to do a video for one of our songs. Do you do that?" And I was kind of like,
Yeah.
I'm like, you're dating Matt. Plus, did you not see what I did for him with how the free wind blows? So we just started like talking about what we wanted to do, and like I showed her the little cartoon of Trump I made for Krust Toons where he was the orange, and she was like, "Ooh, yeah, let's use that." And then we kind of from there, it was like a jumping off point. It was like, all right, let's use they could like all drink like Tang, but it's Trang because it's President Trump, and he's an orange. And then like we started like involving Hillary Clinton in there. That's where the mints came from, and we started from there. And like we kind of came up with the idea where she was like, well, my parents, like, it's kind of about how my parents are like, Trump supporters, or like they don't really support what I support politically. So we wanted to do that. So that's where like the zombie parents came from. And then, like, we just kept going with it, and eventually, like, we ended up doing The Factory and Bready Sanders, the giant gingerbread man. That was originally going to be an army of communist gingerbread men, or socialist gingerbread men, but she was like, no, I don't want to be that band that just does analogies. So we were just like, she's like, what if we just do, like, Bernie Sanders as a gingerbread man? So like, that could work, but I'm like, I'm making him a giant, though. So
I love it.
And eventually just, it went nuts. Whatever happened in the middle, I don't know what happened. It was just like, it was going good for like a minute, and then she gets eaten by Bernie Sanders, and then everything just went to hell. But yeah, it came out really good. But that's kind of how that video came about. We just kind of wrote it as we went, and it came out beautiful. Like, to this day, I tell people, if people say, oh, you animate, what do you do? I show them Pulp. I'm like, this is the best thing I've ever done. Like, I know season 3 of Krust Toons was amazing. Life is Pain was okay. I don't think it was the best thing I did. But I tell people to say Pulp is the greatest animated thing I probably will ever do. I mean, maybe not. I might do better.
Where can people find that if they're looking for it? On YouTube?
Yeah, it's Pulp's on YouTube, on the Hazard Studios YouTube, youtube.com/TED, TEDD, Hazard, HAZARD. which is how you spell the name. I hate when people spell my name wrong. People spell my name wrong all the time. There's like 3 D's, 1 D, 2 Z's,
2
5 R's.
Yeah. Hazard.
Yeah, all the time on flyers, local shows. But I'm too nice to say, I'm too nice to say anything. I'm like, I see it and I'm like, all right, let's do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a whole playlist of music videos I've done. Back on the writing aspect, see, like that Pope was written as we went. But other videos, like Today We Fight with Pieces, Awkward Teenager, Lido, who does a lot of acting and stuff, he kind of had the script already written. He's like, this is what I want to do. If you got any ideas, just let me know. We'll run with it. So we filmed it as is with the dancers and them playing. But I put in like a lot of B-roll footage just to like break it up, and it came out really nice. Other videos though, like Joe Billy's Rainbow with Trash, Joe Billy was like, oh, you do animated music videos? I was like, yeah. He's like, cool, do one for me. I'm like, well, what do you want it to be? I don't know. Surprise me. That's pretty much what Joe said to me. He's like, surprise me. So I think I was working on Pulp at the time, so I'm sitting on it, and I'm like listening to the song over and over and over again in my car, which is how I kind of think of stuff. And I'm like, what could we do here? I'm like, I don't know. And then I'm like, we could have it's about racism, so why don't we do a gang war between a box of crayons and a box of saltine crackers? And I just snapped my fingers, and I was like, that's it.
Brilliant.
That's the video. And that one, I like that video, but I feel like when I did Pulp, after I finished Pulp, I feel like I was suffering from animation PTSD. Like I think I took 2 weeks off, and then I was like, went into doing Rainbow Trash, and I started, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is gonna be good. And then like second week into doing it, I'm like, oh God, where's my life? But like sometimes the people who come to like the bands, like they have a strict idea. Like Tyler in Condition Oakland, he wrote the script for the 3 videos we're doing, and just, gave me the camera and was like, you film it, make this a thing, and put it together. But the story's his idea, the visuals, the images, I kind of have to make them. So it's pretty much a little bit of everything. You're doing these music videos. Really depends on the person.
Now, we want to make sure we get to some of your comments, too. I can't see anything before Zach Hauser, so I don't know if you guys can see anything before that. But Mr. Zach Hauser says, hey, Ted, which is a better song, Wagon Wheel or Where Eagles Dare? But seriously, though, who's your favorite keyboard player you've been in a band with?
I don't think I was ever in a band with a keyboard player. I really can't recall.
Let's see.
Obviously, Zach was the keyboard player. Anybody out there didn't know that? That's.
Did you do karaoke with DJ Hyde? Is that a real thing?
Who?
Okay, that's what I thought.
Who's that? What even that is?
Some internet troll trying to get a rise.
It's Captain Dislike.
It must be Captain Dislike, assumingly.
How'd you get an internet in jail? Do they do that now? They have one of those like white collar prisons.
Well, they can put you in internet jail. They can like kick you off of Facebook for like 30 days.
Is that like a real thing?
Yeah.
Like they kick you off all social media?
Yeah, well, they can kick you off at least like one, like Facebook or Twitter or one of those. They can
Who?
Them.
People Mark
above.
Zuckerberg.
Yeah, exactly. Those
Mark Smuckerberg. That's a Krust Toons character. That's where I should go with season 4. Mark Smuckerberg puts Captain Dislike in internet jail, but the Krust crew have to get him out because they need him for something.
That's brilliant.
There you go.
We're brainstorming already.
So
you saw it, the creative process going on right here.
Anybody else with interesting comments?
Let's see. There's Mr. Popko who couldn't make it, but he felt the need to plug his show coming up at the Alt 92.1 Radio Theater. But it's okay because it's the Hill You Die On, and they're a great band. So if you're around for First Friday, you should definitely go to that. But and apparently the delay. Russell Austin says the delay on the video makes me look like a kung fu master. So I'm totally cool with that. I think I have the One Punch Man thing going on with the head and everything like that. So, but what I wanted to get to you have a video coming out for Condition Oakland, and an interesting story behind that because it was shot at the Schuylkill Mall before they tore it down, which they just started doing recently.
Yeah, the production of that video went from fun to hell to it's just a masterpiece. We started filming it. Well, we had the idea to do it since about May. And I started doing music videos. Tyler kind of came to me and he was like, "Hey, why don't we do a video?" He's like, "I want to do a video for this." And I'm like, "I'll direct it if you want me to." And he kind of, because he used to be very adamant with things when I volunteered to do them. He was like, "You know what?
Yeah.
Let me just do it." Like, I tried to be in the band playing guitar once or twice, and he was like, "We don't really need a second guitar player." And then I think about it after like the 5th time I asked, he was like, "All right, screw it, just show up with your guitar to practice, and we'll see if it happens." I'm in the band now, so I guess it worked. But I asked him, and he was like, "You know what? Yeah, you direct it, and I'll just like make it happen." So in August, we filmed it 3 different videos. It's a trilogy of videos. In one day, and it was like the day after I did Today We Fight with Pieces video in Allentown. So I drove up from Allentown, slept over someone's house, and we did it from like 9 in the morning to about 9-10 at night. Just all over Frackville, Ashland, Mount Carmel, Centralia. And filming at the mall was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. I thought we were going to get in trouble immediately. I was like, "All right, guys, we got to be real careful here because we don't want to get arrested or kicked
Because
out."
at this point, it's closed completely.
It was actually open in
Oh, it was
August.
still open?
It was
Okay.
actually open, which is how we got the interior shots
Oh, okay.
of the video. And we got a lot of B-roll footage around, and a lot of the actor stuff in the parking lot. And Joe Watkins, who's from Georgia, maybe he's watching, I don't know. He's the guy in the video. Well, they don't know what the video looks like, you do. Going to his job and all this. Shotgunning a Four Loko by his car in the parking lot. That's the one I'm surprised we got away with. Like, I thought, like, as soon as we did that, they were just gonna be like, "You know what? It was fine when you were pretending to work inside of the abandoned Kmart, but and it was all right smashing the windows out. But this is where we draw the line: the Four Loko and pretending to do cocaine off the back of a Chevy Cruze. That's where we draw the line."
Yeah.
Actually, when we finished up filming in the mall parking lot, that's finally when security came out and they saw us and they're like, "All right, maybe we should call the cops or something." And we kind of just like slinked away in our cars and drove away.
Well, at that point, I'd imagine that your employment is coming to an end. Should you really care at this point?
Yeah, well, see, like we got all of it that day, and we knew like that those were the necessary shots that we had to get for the video to work, because Joe was only there for like the next day or two. And Jordan, who also lives in Georgia, she was only there for 2 days. And so I said, "All right, we'll come back next week and we'll get the band shots." We're thinking, how are we going to get the band shots? Let's go on a Sunday night. No, it'll probably be dark by then, when by the time everybody leaves. Then we're like, why don't we just ask them all? Why don't we just call them up and see if we can do it in the mall or outside the mall? Nobody was answering their phone. We saw a security guard one day. I really wanted to just flag him down and be like, "Hey, can we film a music video in one of these abandoned stores?" But, we never got a chance to do that. Months and months pass. We get busy. One of our guys works in retail. My day job, I work in a retail establishment too, so I know how Christmas gets. So November comes, and it was still like, it's like God wanted us to make get that shot. He's like, "I want you to get those band shots, so it's going to be 60 degrees until the middle of December." Middle of December comes, starts getting cold and snowing, and we're like, "This ain't going to happen. We're not going to get the band shots." And like, Tyler's like, "You should just make the video." And I was like, "No, we got to get those band shots." I was really adamant on getting those band shots. A couple of weeks ago, still don't have the band shots. It's 60 degrees out in the middle of January. We're like, that's the day we're going to get it. And it rains. So we're like, we'll just do it tomorrow. The next day, I drove up there to do the band shots, and the entire parking lot of the Schuylkill Mall is covered in ice. They did not treat it. And I drove on the one side, and I'm like, I'm like, all right, I don't think we're going to record today, so I'm just going to go home. My car slides with the brake on, and I'm like, oh, God, no. So at that point, I just went home. I was like, I'm just going to make the video. And came out beautiful. I guess it was meant to be, it was meant to not get those band shots.
So that's coming out next month then.
February 14th.
On Valentine's Day.
Well, we're saying Ash Wednesday because we don't necessarily celebrate Valentine's Day.
Is it Ash Wednesday?
Yeah, same day this year.
Oh, wow.
If you're Christian, no steak dinners on
Yeah.
Valentine's Day.
Right. So from your music itself as a folk punk musician, are you writing from a heartfelt perspective, or are you writing more in the satirical sense, like we were talking about with the comics and stuff like that?
I try to do a little of both. A lot of my songs kind of just end up being about personal stuff. Like the next album I'm working on is going to be, there's a lot of songs about medical issues and just like how the local scene kind of seems like a pissing match sometimes, like everybody trying to outdo each other.
We've talked about that before.
So pretty much a little of both. Relationship stuff. Used to have huge drinking problem, don't anymore. So there's that's a big subject that always rears its ugly head.
As I pour a beer, I apologize.
We touch on that a lot on the show, really.
Yeah,
A lot
do.
of our guests don't drink, believe it or not.
Right.
It seems to be that way. A little half and half.
I've been sober for like about 5 years. But if you knew me,
Well, good for you, man.
Before those 5 years, I was a terrible alcoholic. To the point where it just pretty much ruined anything I tried to do. Like every time I tried to start a band and fall apart because of me having like an anger issue because of my drinking, or
The boozing.
I would try to film things or try to do something like animation, and I would just like blow it off and go get wrecked. So yeah, I mean, I'm better. I don't miss it at all.
It affects everybody differently too.
Yeah.
Some people, it doesn't have that effect. Other people it does. I mean, alcoholism runs in my family too. So
Well, yeah.
I'm very when it comes to this stuff, I'm usually a one or two and done kind of guy. Because of that.
Yeah.
So my father won't touch it.
Right.
He just won't drink at all, just because he knows it runs in the family. He just. He has nothing against it. It's just he just doesn't do it.
Yeah, some people have problems. Like me, I have a problem. Like I'm just not gonna drink again because I know like I will do something I will regret. But some people, like I have a lot of friends in bands who drink like one or two beers and they're fine. Then they're done. They're like, oops, had half a beer. Guess I'm done.
Yeah.
And there's like nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely.
But I mean, for me, it's just something I don't do. I just, better off that way for me.
Well, I mean, you're a busy guy now, so you
Yeah.
probably don't have time for that anyway.
Yeah, I wouldn't even have time to drink, honestly. I mean, only thing I really drink is coffee.
Clearly.
Hence the macchiato.
Dunkin' Donuts, you got a free plug today.
Yeah.
So you have a show coming up at the Hazleton Art League, which you've played there before.
I actually run the shows at the Hazleton Art
Okay,
League. I'm
so-
part of
so
the
you're-
board of directors of the Hazleton Art League. So
So you're very involved in the Hazleton scene. Can you tell us a little bit about the music scene in Hazleton? I mean, obviously, it goes back for you for a number of years, and maybe it's something. I mean, I don't think it's something we've ever talked about on the show because we're so focused on Scranton, Wilkes-Barre,
that's probably-
that I think a lot of those outlining cities just don't get a shout out like they should.
well, it's mostly because it's pretty much non-existent at this point. See, the Hazleton scene, like compared to what it used to be, it's like barely anything. It used to be huge, like there were bands all over.
Yeah.
But that's when you were in high school, so it was easier to communicate with people that you're not on a daily basis, unlike Facebook,
Right.
where it's like you send somebody a message about playing the show, and you see the little scene thing come up, and they don't get back to you until like the day of the show. They're like, oh, "Yeah, I got work," and it's mostly like there were some things that happened in the Hazleton area, music-wise, that not a lot of people were like really like super proud of. Like some companies would move in and start doing ticket sales for shows and kind of just killed that vibe of the DIY punk scene. And then there was you know, a cool little folk punk thing going on for a while. I'm proud that I was part of that. With When East Meets West and you know, me being a solo musician. But you know, it's just like a lot of it has to do with people just moving out of the area that were like living there for years, and it's really hard to like get in touch with people about like, you know, shows and stuff. Like, you know, it's just like a 31-year-old man doesn't run down on the street with a handful of flyers and walks up to a random 16-year-old and says, "Hey, you should come to this," without getting arrested.
It's so different now.
But the cool thing about I know you guys, you're very tight knit up here. Us down there in Hazleton, Schuylkill County, you know, out towards like Bloomsburg and down more south and Reading and all that. We it's kind of cool because it's like instead of having a really close knit scene in one area, we're all kind of connected. Like we started kind of networking. Like it was like I couldn't find shows, so I knew Tyler, so I asked him, "Hey, can I play a show in Ashland?" And I play a show there. So you know, he plays a show in Hazleton. Next thing you know, someone else plays a show. We go play a show down in Reading, and we all just kind of like bridge to each other. And it's really cool because like any given show I do at the Hazleton Art League now, it's bands from all over. Like I got in February, I have a band from Rochester, New York coming up, TreadWater. They're going to be doing a little weekender. I actually think the day after they're playing Barton Irby's with us. We're playing that show too, I think. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But like we have them. We got It Never Fails. They're from Allentown area. Vanvancar. They're from Schuylkill County. So you know, you get bands from like all over. Like Twindows, they're from Harrisburg. But if I say, hey, you guys want to play a show at the Art League, they're game. But that's really cool because then you get to hear the stories about like they're bringing up with their local scene, and it's really cool to hear the differences of like, you know, what I did when I was younger and what they did when they were younger. See the similarities and the differences. It's like, well, we used to do shows in a skating rink, and they're like, oh, well, we used to do shows at a, I don't know, something like an ice cream parlor. It keeps it interesting.
You guys probably do some house shows and stuff too, I would think.
We used to down in Hazleton. Yeah. Not so much anymore because of the cops. Actually, we used to do, in 2011, we had 2 house venues. One was called, I think it was called The Pit, and we did shows at my house, and I called it the Hazard Area. And one day, it was like, the one year we kind of got a little out of control with the house shows. So it was this little...
As those things usually do.
This little Facebook pops up named Wendy Decker, and of course we're all like, oh, look at her. She's cute. Cute scene girl. I bet you she's into Pat the Bunny. Message it to everybody, or like saying like, hey, does anybody know when a show is? So you know, our friend Razdi, he's like, you know, that's like a cop Facebook, right? Like what? Like, yeah, that's a fake cop Facebook. They're going on the Facebook as this girl, finding out what the house shows are, and they're gonna come to the house shows and they're gonna bust it. So it was like, all right, everybody block her.
You'd think they'd like have stuff to do that like wasn't that.
Yeah,
somehow.
You would think, right?
You know, like we get when you're a little younger.
You know what I mean?
It's like it's different when you're like 31, because like when you're a little younger, it's like you get carried away. You're like, I got these like younger people coming to shows, like these 20-year-olds coming to shows.
They're looking for underage.
I want to be the cool guy. I want to say, yeah, you could have a beer, just hide it under your jacket or something. And then as soon as the cops show up, everybody who's over age gets fined $1,000 or something like that.
Sure.
So you know, it's different when you're younger. But you know, when you're older now, it's like, all right, played the house show. The cops are here. I'm just gonna sneak away. But a lot of times these days, if you're older and you're throwing a house show, you're very respectful. Like if the cops show up, you'd be like, hey, I got wristbands, so you can't do nothing to me. I read the bylaws.
Yeah.
It's real different nowadays. I mean, we still play house shows all over the area, but in my area, we don't really do house shows anymore. I'm sure if I had a place that I lived that was big enough and I had a basement and was like, hey, I could do shows here, I'd try to do it. But having the Hazleton Art League is actually a really good thing for us because now we can have shows there and nobody can give us issues. Like we don't have a designated time to stop.
Oh, that's
We
cool.
don't have cops banging on our door saying, "Hey, if you don't turn down, we're gonna give you a $500 fine." It's really it's a real blessing.
So, that show is February 23rd. Is that?
Yeah,
Okay.
whatever that Friday is. Not on my phone right now. I would check it.
Sure. Let's see. Does anybody else have any comments or anything like that they want to get in before we wrap up here? Chris Decker says karaoke with DJ Hyde. What?
Could you tell him that I never met DJ Hyde in my entire life? He knows that.
You tell him. So, what advice would you give to anybody who wants to get into animation or anything like that? A lot of it, on a side note, a lot of it reminds me of like the Newgrounds era of animation. Is that I don't know if that's a compliment to you or not, but I grew up on that stuff, so I really like that kind of thing.
First of all, I would say run. Run as far as you can.
Do not
get into animation. But if you're really adamant on getting into it, I'd say actually go to school for it. I didn't go to school. My stuff looks great, but I didn't go to school. But if I were you, I would go to school and learn as much as you can. But really, the key thing with it is practice. You need to keep practicing. If you want to do it, you just got to sit down and just keep working at it. Really just like figure out the technique and just learn. It's always, animation for me at least, it's always a learning process. Like every time I do a video, I learn how to do something else. Like I learned how to do so much stuff with animation in the last 6 months. It's insane. But pretty much that's what I would say. Just keep teaching yourself stuff, keep learning, just keep at it. But like you're saying, Newgrounds, I was brought up a lot on the Adult Swim side of things.
Yes.
And then you notice a lot of the Adult Swim stuff is
I can see that influence in there
recycled
somewhere.
animation.
You mentioned
Things.
Vasquez too.
Yeah.
I
He was
definitely see a little bit of that.
A big influence
in
on
there.
me. If you saw my older stuff, you'd be like, this looks like a Johnny the Homicidal Maniac comic because
Right.
it just was a ripoff of it. Until I was like, wait, I should have my own style. But yeah, like
I think we all go through that phase.
Yeah.
If you're anybody creative or anything like that, like I the first really edgy stuff that I saw was like Kevin Smith movies.
Oh yeah.
So I wrote a lot like Kevin Smith, like growing up, and then I was like looking back, I'm like, why did I do that? Why did I think this was good? At any point.
Yeah, I mean, it's cute, to like emulate your role models.
Yeah.
But it's a good way to get started on doing what you want to do because then you figure out because you're always going to get more influences. Like I got influenced by that Adult Swim, Jhonen Vasquez kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Then eventually I got more into like filmmaking and different types of animation and stuff. So I would change up my style a little bit and my writing style. I'm like huge into Edgar Wright films. Like Edgar Wright's my favorite film director. Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, The World's End, all that stuff. Baby Driver right now is like probably my favorite movie. I'm really big into Neil Blomkamp. So like District 9 Chappie. Elysium, it's okay. It's not the best, it's not the worst.
Yeah,
it's kind of like that.
Right.
It's like that. I feel like District 9's that in between ground, but like Elysium leans towards the bottom.
I kind of wish they were talking about giving him an Alien movie. I really wish they let him do that as opposed to what we got.
I really wish they would give him the Alien franchise, but then I saw Covenant and I was like, Covenant was good.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Right.
Hollywood's really like, it's real corrupt. It's kind of like, I don't know if you're a wrestling fan, but it's very much, it's like, right now, it's like how WCW was in the late 90s. It's like if Neil Blomkamp wants to make an Alien movie, but Ridley Scott still wants to make it, they're going to go with Ridley Scott.
Right.
But yeah, that's a lot of like my influences. So, but Newgrounds, I was into like some of the Newgrounds stuff coming up because there really was nothing else to do in high school except watch Newgrounds. I mean, computer lab, that basically was just, you know, they can put like typing or computer aided drafting or whatever they wanted to on your class schedule, but really it was just, they could have just put designated computer time because that's what it was. Because half the time with these teachers, they're well, at least in the early 2000s, they barely taught you anything with like computer aided. I took computer aided drafting and I was like, oh, cool, I could draw blueprints. Guy didn't teach us anything. Half the time we were listening to Rage Against the Machine and watching Newgrounds.
So to wrap up, then, what do you have next coming up? You have the Condition Oakland video. You have another video as well, I believe.
Yes, I'm working on a animated video for a band called Azwel from New York City. It's called At the End of the Day. I honestly think, I know I said Pulp was the greatest thing I ever did, but this might be probably right up there with Pulp because it's more or less, it's not as alternative as Pulp is. It's more or less like contemporary. Like you could show it to your mom and she'll be like, "Oh, well, isn't that nice?" You know? Because I know I showed my mom Pulp and she was like, "Why is there a swastika on there? Are you a Nazi? Are you a white supremacist?" And I'm like, shaking my head. But there's that. I'm going to be doing 2 more videos for Condition Oakland for the songs Not Done and Palette Veins. They're filmed. We just got to finish them up, edit them. And then I'll be doing a video for King Kong Hates the Wolfman, which that's going to be huge because they're like a kind of a classic metal band with like a modern spin. And the singer Dave, he wrote the script for the video, and I love it. I think it's really, it reminds me of one of the film scripts I wrote. And it's really cool when somebody writes a script for a movie video that's very much like one of your scripts, because then you're like, well, good, I don't have to make the movie now. They could just use that for this.
Right.
Which is kind of like what At the End of the Day is.
Kind of scratches that itch, so to speak.
Yeah. It's like, well, I wanted to do a project like this, and now I don't have to deal with actors as much. I don't have to deal with lines. They're already there in the music.
So the Hazleton Art League show is Friday, February 23rd. We have TreadWater, we talked about, Markus A.D., Ace and the Kings, Never Fails, and Vanvancar. So kudos to Vanvancar. I think you have the best band name of the night.
It's actually based on a video game at the Drunken Monkey in Ashland, Pennsylvania. There's a video game in there called Vanvancar. And it's funny because Zach had said to me, yeah, that'd make a really cool pop punk band name. And I was like, let's start a pop punk band. Never happened. Now Vanvancar is the thing, and I'm just over here like, okay.
Missed the boat on that one.
Well.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. We had a lot of fun. We definitely learned a lot. So we will see you next Wednesday, 7 to 8, right here on Facebook. We have an interesting conversation coming up about the Scranton Fringe Festival. You may be wondering, because I'm sure if you're in the arts community or if you're a fan of that stuff at all, you've probably seen lots and lots of articles about it, wondering, well, what's NEPA Scene doing? Why are they sleeping on this story? We definitely have stuff coming about that. To sum it up very shortly, Maureen Cummings, who we've talked about on the show before, Lackawanna County Commissioner, is not a fan of supporting the arts at all whatsoever. And big surprise, another Republican who doesn't want to support the arts wants to cut their funding there. Obviously, she's a minority commissioner, so she has no real power. So her vote really doesn't mean anything anyway. But essentially, she's more or less put it out there that, I don't like you people for specific reasons, not just the arts, and I just want it to be known that I don't like you people. And the arts community has responded in kind and said, well, we don't like you either. So we'll have an interesting discussion about that next week with some of the people who are involved in the Fringe Festival, volunteers, performers, whatever, and kind of stick it to her a little bit. So should be an interesting show. It'll be a lot of fun. Please tune in. Thank you very much for tuning in tonight, and we'll see you next week.
See you guys.